Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. Let's go ahead and jump back to yesterday and take a look at what happened here. Remember what we said? Expecting basically a pullback to one of our levels to hold for a continuation higher. So the day before yesterday, on Monday, it was all clear that you wanted to be long. Remember, all of our signals lined up to be long on Monday. And then coming into yesterday, the pullback was made sense, but we expected the bulls to recover somewhere in here, either right around our first roadmap level, 47.71, or one of the other three areas below that to go ahead, recover, and go ahead and continue to push. So that's exactly what happened, and it turns out they basically held our roadmap level for that push. So we never really got below the level we were holding right before the market opened. We got one of those classic peak below and bounces, right? So that was our line in the sand. They came into it, bounced, and then this was right at the open here, actually. So you could have probably bought that level. It just didn't quite go far before this peak below happened, and then the bulls took over, right? So there were a lot of great opportunities. Again, you could have bought the first roadmap level. It just didn't go anywhere. You could have tried shorting as we broke, but also didn't go anywhere. And you could have tried shorting the 47.77, gotten a decent little trade out of it. But really, the name of the game was once we broke out from here and we held that first roadmap level and got through VWAP, what the idea was to buy those pullbacks, expecting for the bulls to break things out. If you were aggressive, you could have bought this area and held on to see if it was going to go. But really, the first clear sign that maybe things were going to be changing in terms of the pullback was this break above the morning highs and getting through VWAP and getting the crossover. So everything lined up from there. There's your first tag of the 200 on the pullback. Unfortunately, didn't quite go much more than a little over 5 points. In fact, buying 77 would have got you to 82 for a 5-point push. But then they had to come back. Remember, they don't make it easy. Still held 77 with just about a point, maybe a point and a half break. So that really was kind of the money shot right there, was getting long off the pullback. Now notice what happened was trouble right around 77, tag 77 nearly to the tick. And then as we got through it, that pullback to it, and that was, again, basically the money shot. So if you held on to 77, as you can see, all the way up to the high of the day, just a really nice aggressive push. So if you missed 77, you got the pullback to the VWAP here. You got the pullback almost to the 200, so this really wasn't much of a spot to enter, but you did get the pullback to the FMA here. That brought you all the way up to the high of the day. So maybe not a beautiful, perfect stair step that we see pretty often, but still great pullback to some of our areas to try longs in the direction of where we expected. And then we got to the high of the day, and it was just kind of a sideways chop fest to finish it out. So there was some great opportunities in the morning to go ahead, jump on the bias we had once price started to give us clues that that was the direction that made sense. And then again, at the end of the day, for the last couple hours, it just kind of chopped around, didn't do anything. So in the chop, still decent pullbacks off the 200 as price was kind of failing lower here. Notice what happened. We got the push to the high of the day, and then we got this little pullback, and this was the high of the day before. Remember, so as you're long, if you were long yesterday, you should have known to take profit right around this area, because this was where we would expect there to be trouble for the bulls, right? So we expected there to be trouble right around this 97, 98 area. It did have a bunch of trouble for 15, 20 minutes, and then popped right to the next expected resistance, which was the high of the day before. And interestingly enough, they probed it by a couple ticks, and then began the pullback, and then the lower high, right? So we talked about this type of situation where we push to a high, we pull back, the bulls try to come back to either test or break out, but they fail in front. And then from there, it should have been clear to maybe try the back end for some pullbacks. So you got basically the tag in 97 there, one tick shy. You did get a lot of little plays right off the 200 here. Basically all these tests, including this little pop through, held with about 2 points of risk. Could have tried pull back into the Hopal, into the next roadmap level. And then at the end of the day here, you get that textbook tag of the VWAP to hold for a little bounce at the end of the day. Maybe you would have grabbed 10 points out of it. So there were some decent opportunities. Pretty much every rotation in the market was right off our key roadmap levels, right? So rotating off 77, getting through it, then holding it to the upside, having trouble right at this next roadmap area for a while, and then peeking through right to our next roadmap level nearly to the tick, pulling back, basically holding this little pocket here, and then at the end of the day, tagging that VWAP there, and technically this resistance from the morning nearly to the tick to kind of peter out. So all the major rotations were right off our roadmap levels, and so that's how yesterday worked. Looking at what happened here in the overnight session, really haven't done anything. We came right up to the high of yesterday in the overnight session here. We held, well, that was not printed at the time, actually. So we held 50% of the previous day in the pullback last night. And notice what happened. Actually, let's pull this back. That wasn't there at the time. So we held, basically for all intents and purposes, we held 50% of Tuesday in the overnight session and then popped to the high of Tuesday and then went ahead and went sideways here. And then in the overnight session, you can see this nice tag of Hopal. Remember, Hopal printed somewhere right about here, and they kind of parried off of it after it printed, came down, and then basically held it here. Maybe a point and a half break for this pullback now. But it is kind of choppy in here. We're trading right inside of that end of the day chop that we had yesterday. So not really my favorite place to be trading right now. And let's go ahead and jump up to the higher time frame.